And we're back on the Fowler Show. Now I got to tell you, folks, depending on when you're hearing this show, this bill could have already passed the United States Senate. Then it'll be going to the House. We're talking about the Employee Non-Discrimination Act, which you haven't seen a reformed Employee Non-Discrimination Act since 1968, 1960s America, 1960s. We haven't seen one of these bills. We're joined by one of my good friends. She's the executive director of Get Equal. Heather, welcome to the show.
Hey there, Richard.
Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you. We know it's busy times over there at Get Equal. You guys are trying to get equal on this ENDA bill, clearly. So tell me, why haven't we seen a new bill in so long? What's taken so long?
Yeah, well, that's a great question and one that we really need an answer to, right? So what we've seen for the progression of this bill is that something like this was actually introduced in 1974 by Bella Abzug and, of all people, Ed Koch. That was called the Equality Act of 1974, and that was actually much bigger than ENDA. It was much bigger than workplace protection, and was actually more like what we would call now a full equality bill, more like the Civil Rights Act. That ended up being cut up into little pieces, and one of those pieces is what we're seeing now with the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. The Senate hasn't actually even voted on this bill since 1996, so the last time the Senate acted on this bill, the Macarena was the #1 hit on the radio, which gives you some sense of where the Senate is on this. So we're finally looking at a Senate vote. It's taken way too long to get here, and it's definitely an uphill battle to then try to get this bill through the House.
So tell me, what is because I think there's a lot of folks out there listening in Fowler Nation who they know of ENDA, they've heard of ENDA, but what exactly, bells and whistles, a little nitty-gritty, what exactly is ENDA, or the Employee Non-Discrimination Act? What's the metrics here?
So it's actually not complicated. All this bill does is basically say that from the federal level, it would be illegal to discriminate in hiring, firing, or promotion of a person based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. So this actually, though we talk about this bill in terms of it being an LGBTQ bill, it actually protects everyone based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. Everyone has a sexual orientation. Everyone has a gender identity. So this actually would also protect straight folks. It would also protect folks who have kind of a more centerish view of their gender identity. So it actually is a very simple bill at its heart. What makes it a little bit more complicated is the broad religious exemptions contained in the bill, and that's where there's been much more controversy within the LGBT community about whether this is the right direction for this bill.
Now, before we get to the religious exemption, because I want to have a really as much as we can have in a segment, but definitely a deeper conversation about that. So, say for example, for those folks out there watching, right, or listening, depending upon how you're getting the show. Say for example, you work at your local McDonald's. We like to pick on McDonald's at the Fowler Show because we need to raise the minimum wage, right? You work at McDonald's in New Albany, Mississippi. And you happen to be, LGBT, you happen to be a gay man or a lesbian woman, and they, fire you because of your sexual orientation. What happens next if this bill passes?
So this bill would actually, if it passes the Senate, passes the House, and is signed by the President, it would give that person working at a McDonald's in Mississippi some kind of legal recourse to be able to say, A, this isn't okay, and the government has said that it's not okay, and B, I have a way to go back to my employer and to bring a suit, right? So it's either to be able to be reinstated, if that's what your wish is if you were fired, or you can go to the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and kind of go through the court system in order to have some kind of legal recourse.
And do any of those protections currently exist in the current federal statutes?
Not in the federal statute. So there is no protection right now for LGBTQ workers at the federal level. What we have seen is some municipalities and some states pass similar legislation at the town level, city level, or the state level. So about half of the states in the country right now have some kind of protections, whether it's just for sexual orientation or sexual orientation and gender identity. What this bill would do is basically to go to the rest of the states and say, actually, you can't get away with discriminating against LGBT folks either.
I love that. And I think it's very, very, Heather, I think it's really important that, when we have these conversations, we explain all the bells and whistles of the bill so folks can go out there if they're going to call their member of Congress and they support the bill, they know exactly what the bill does and how the bill affects their lives, whether they're LGBTQ or not. But let's delve a little bit deeper and let's talk about the religious exemptions for just a second.
Great.
And I think there's been a lot of argument on the left. Clearly, the debate's already sort of been figured out on the right, but there's a lot of argument on the left that the fight for religious exemptions. And let me explain that. Let me unpack that a little bit more for those folks out there listening or watching. The whole idea that religious organizations can be exempt from any sort of, they could fire somebody or they're exempt from any of the regulations that Heather sort of explained at the beginning of the segment. So Heather, but we've heard a lot from progressives saying that, our fight for religious exemption is sort of giving up the good for the perfect.
Yes and no. So let me kind of explain what's in the bill right now.
Please.
So there are two really important pieces to consider in this bill. As the Employment Non-Discrimination Act is written right now, there is a reference to Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. So in the Civil Rights Act, it basically says the government can't tell houses of worship, faith communities, churches, mosques, synagogues, in order to preserve those entities' freedom of religion. The government can't tell you to do something in hiring and firing, in employment practices that goes against your religious beliefs, right? So there's a clear, what has now been called in case law, ministerial exemption that the Civil Rights Act invokes. So right now a house of worship doesn't have to hire a woman as their minister if that goes against their religious views, right? And as a seminary graduate, I completely agree with the idea of religious liberty. I think that's fundamental to who we are as Americans, who this country is. Though I might disagree with the decision that a house of worship makes, I think it's important to preserve that. What the Employment Non-Discrimination Act does is actually go a step further than that. So in addition to referencing that ministerial exemption specifically for houses of worship and entities whose sole purpose is the execution of religion, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act goes a step further to also broaden that exemption to organizations and associations, entities that might have some kind of religious affiliation but are not strictly preaching the gospel, right? So that
like a Catholic university.
Exactly. So that might include a university. That might include a Catholic K through 12 school. That might include a religiously affiliated hospital. What that particular exemption does is actually broaden the category of religious entities, religiously affiliated entities that would be exempt. And because Get Equal is a grassroots LGBTQ organization, we have been hearing from folks on the ground all over the country, many of whom live in rural places where a religiously affiliated hospital may be the only employer in town, right? So I hear a lot of arguments from folks saying, well, look, if an employer doesn't want you, why would you want to be there? For a lot of people, that's the only option in their town. So we think that exemption is overly broad.
I think you're completely right on this one, Heather. We've got to go to break. We want to appreciate you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Right back on the Fowler Show after this break.